live from the Bronx. It's your boy KB. We are still the podcast that celebrates Bronx creatives and change makers. And today we are at Mission Helping Hands Pantry. So please mind us if you hear a little bit of noise in the background, because we are here on a Saturday doing dope work, and there's folks out here.
Facts, yo. What's happening, y'all? It is your boy Jay. Looking forward to building. We got a very, very special guest with us today. Kevin just told y'all that we're out here in the middle of the work. My man just paused to spend an hour with us to record this podcast. So without further ado, let me introduce our guest. He goes by the name Bruce Blue Rivera. Now, this brother is a jack of all trades. He is an entrepreneur. He goes by the name the Urban Mixologist. He is a food and beverage writer. He is a self-proclaimed Bronx ambassador. This brother is killing the game and doing some amazing work in the Bronx community. Blue, what's happening, bro? How you feeling?
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for coming and spending time today.
Yeah, we appreciate you to take an hour of your time when you're out in the community doing dope work. It means a lot to us. So we don't want to waste your time. We want to kind of jump right into this. So for those who might not know you yet, one of the things that we like to ask all of our guests is, how do they identify? Obviously, Jay named a lot of your titles. Yeah. So for the listeners, who are you and how do you identify?
So tell us a little bit.
Could that be a pronoun? Like, instead of they, them, I'm Bronx.
Yo, it is now.
Are we making that? Is that a thing?
It is now.
Definitely put that in.
Like, I'm not he, her, them, I'm Bronx.
Period.
I identify as Bronx.
Yeah, that's my man Bronx right there. That's how we move forward.
That sounds like the new Live from the Bronx t-shirts. I am Bronx.
Oh, write that down. We'll give you credit. We'll give
you.
Look. Nah, that's what's up, man.
I'll email it to ourselves right after this.
Word. Yo, but Blue, with that said, man, tell us a little bit more about your upbringing. Let's take a step all the way back. Where'd you grow up? What's your relationship to the Bronx?
So I lived there for very young. I think I was 1 year old. Then we moved to England, Ipswich, and then Spain. And unfortunately, my parents split. And then I came. It's kind of the most blessing, cursed thing. I moved from a military lifestyle to growing up in the South Bronx in the 80s. So it's kind of, mom, came back home.
Word.
Grandparents, and that's, I grew up in the South Bronx, Parkchester, 168 3rd Avenue, Townsend Avenue. I've lived all over Gun Hill and Decatur.
But yo, that song, I've been around the world. Where you been? That's my man.
That, don't know other sections of the Bronx. Like, I've lived everywhere in the Bronx.
You don't need a GPS nowadays, right? You're like, yo, what street you on? I'm there.
I know it. Everything from Valentine to Zariga.
Word.
I was blessed. I think, a lot of people like, damn, you feel bad you came. The Bronx when I was growing up was very different. Burnt out buildings, and it was a real thing. We were suffering from a lot of ills at the time, but it also gave me context to where we're at now and what other communities are going through. So I don't forsake that, and I don't overlook that. I think that's a special upbringing, and I think we share, especially people who in the Bronx from that time period. We understand what it's like. So we kind of.
Yeah, let me ask you something, right? Like, I was born in 92, right? Yeah. So I wasn't even born in the 80s.
Because you're a baby.
Don't be hating, right? We still pop it. So one of the things that I always hear about, right? We know where the phrase "the Bronx is burning" came from, right? Yeah. But one of the dopest things that was happening at that time was the rise of hip hop. And so even though there were all these burning buildings and there was a lot going on, we know the drug war was happening. At the same time, there was community, there was hip hop, there was resilience, there was people still coming together. Man, talk to me a little bit about that. Like, what was your upbringing like in that time?
It's crazy, but I think all of that great stuff was born out of necessity. I think when you're hungry, you get creative.
Word.
When you don't have things given to you, utilized to you, you create a way. You don't have a hammer, you create a hammer.
Facts.
You're not going to stop eating. You're just going to learn how to eat differently.
Facts.
And I think that's what happened. And I think the Bronx and the South Bronx resiliency really resonated in art and culture, because guess what? Your creativity and your mind was still free.
Word.
You could be poor, but you could have a rich man's mindset, or you could be rich with creativity and art and be blessed with talent. And I think, we had to do that. The homes didn't have TVs.
Yeah.
To sit outside and cipher was entertainment. To sit outside and paint on the wall, or start breakdancing and uprock.
Word.
It was just kind of like, oh, that's cool. I'm gonna make up something new.
Yeah.
And it gave, especially the youth, something positive to do, because it was something that they were creating. And I think most big movements and anything you do come out of a sense of need or a sense of disparity. You got to come up out of something. And it just happened to be that what we used, the tools and the things we did to cope and to lead, ended up becoming very marketable to the world many years later.
Billion-dollar industry, marketable.
Multi-billion-dollar.
Yeesh. So growing up, did you have context for some of the things that you were experiencing, right? So obviously you said 80s in the Bronx, obviously the crack era, right? Obviously there was a ton of poverty, burnt down buildings. At the time, did you know, like, yo, this is not okay? Or was it just, this is just my experience?
It's funny. I heard somebody say this once and it hit me. I said, nobody knows they broke when you broke. Like, if that's the only lifestyle you have, like, you think everybody lives like that until you're exposed to a different lifestyle, or you see somebody else doing differently. So it's funny. I didn't know I was broke. I didn't know that, the things that we were doing I thought everybody would do that. I would do that. And, I just think we just lived life. We had fun. We played in the pump. And, like, that stuff was just normal stuff, waiting online for food and all that stuff was just kind of like life.
For those listening to pump, that's a fire hydrant.
Yeah, the pump,
yeah. You might. It's summertime now. Summertime in the Bronx. That pump is on and popping.
I tell you, that has been one of my goals. I have a 10-year-old son who doesn't live, the lifestyle I did, of course.
Word.
But my goal was to let him get hit by a fire hydrant pump once in his life. As a father, like, I just want, I look at him and I'm just like, there's a lot of lessons we learned from that stuff. But, we were resourceful. And I think, so in context, I think I didn't really have the context until I think I was in junior high school. And,
You went to high school in the Bronx?
I didn't, actually. I'm gonna tell you what's so funny is Mom tried to get me up out of here. I went to 198. I was at Flags, the castle.
Oh, word, yeah.
Yeah, so I started junior high school there. And funny enough, I was a year ahead, and I was a little bit smaller than people my grade, believe it or not. And
when you say smaller, was that 6 feet?
No, let me tell you, I didn't shoot up, man. I was a year younger than everybody because I started school a year early.
Yeah.
But I got jumped in Crotona Park. I mean, multiple times. I mean, they used to steal bus passes. Like, it was a thing. Like, you had to get creative to get home. Like,
word. Yo, like, I know that feeling.
Bus stop. So that happened, man. And one time I got jumped in school. And they messed me up. They broke my arm and everything. Damn. And so my mom was like, I'm gonna lose my son messing around. And you know how it is, the influence in the street, that becomes, as a teenager, that becomes a little bit more, want to hang out. And especially with what's going on, it was very easy to fall into that lifestyle. And so my mother made an attempt to try to get us out of, or me and I had a younger sister at the time, out of the Bronx, and thinking that was going to be the way to heal it. So we moved to South Yonkers. Out of the frying pan and into the fire.
Yeah. I'm guessing Mom didn't finish the research. She was out the Bronx.
Word.
So I used to live down right off Nepean Ave, right by School Street, Slow Bomb. I'm not gonna say it was much better, but I ended up going to a small high school called Tuckahoe High School. They had a football program, and I was introduced to football when I was in junior high school, and they had a good program. And my grandmother actually ended up moving in that area, and we used her address. I'm not advocating that's illegal and stuff like that, but trying to get a better opportunity for the kids. Word. So I ended up, I'm not one of the Bronx Hayes boys, but I was always still in the Bronx, that was just the cards that I was dealt with. And so, I mean, I think that also exasperated the divide of poverty, because now I'm in school in Westchester by Eastchester and Bronxville. And I'm like, what do you mean people got cars at 16? Like, like you got multiple sneakers? Like, that's it. Wait, you don't got like that, the school outfits and the home outfits?
Facts.
Like, that wasn't a thing. So I learned a lot, man, but it also exposed me to a lot of different culture and different people. different lifestyle, different background. So
Yeah, yo, thank you for sharing that too. I
Yeah,
think one of the things that I've noticed, right, just hearing a little bit about your story, and then now, knowing you, and you got your hands in everything, bro. Like, you talk about entrepreneurship, brand development, the way you've been able to maneuver to create, a life and a career for yourself is super dope. So, thinking about your upbringing, where did you start, right? So like, and how did you get involved with all the things you're involved with? So let's say the club scene, right? I think that was like one of your first biggest
man,
endeavors.
How did I? Okay, I'm gonna tell you, there's not something lost being raised your formative years in a hustler society.
Facts.
I'm not even gonna take it. You see people, you see people buying things, or that are attaining these goals. And I remember a big thing was like having big systems and the benzene, like all that stuff was you look at that and you're like, wow, I would like to have nice things, and just being resourceful. So I think that had a big part to play in it. Always looking for an opportunity. The one thing I hate to hear is when people say there's no option or there's no out. Like, as long as you're breathing, there's an option. As long as you got two, working hands, and even if you don't, you got one working hand. If you're breathing, there's an opportunity to make your situation better.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, you're gonna change the world, but you can make it better for yourself. You hungry, you can feed that belly. And I think a lot of people don't give themselves enough credit, or they doubt themselves. And I think that was one thing I didn't have the luxury of doing. It was just kind of, you figure it out. Bread on bread sandwiches is the thing. You figure it out.
Word.
So I think later in life, I saw opportunities like that. So very young, back in the day, there was these guys that used to hand out flyers.
Yeah.
And I remember I saw, we were down by St. Mark's by the Cube. And they used to stand there because everybody used to come out of trains and go to St. Mark's at the time.
Yeah.
And it was like that city lifestyle, right?
Word.
So they were handing out flyers. And what they would do is they did have stickers or stamps. They'd have stickers or stamps that would, you would have to bring the flyer in order to get a discount entry into the club.
Yeah. Okay, we could edit, so you could talk.
Yeah.
No, don't be sorry.
No, you good.
This is your work.
This is your work, bro. This behind the scenes.
So they basically would hand out these things, and you would get a certain percentage of every flyer that came back to the club. Basically promotion, starting date. Promoted. Yeah. And I remember I saw this kid doing it, and I was like, yo, that is the easiest job in the world. You just hand out a flyer, they bring it to the club, and then you get paid. Like, so I ended
wait, what time period are we talking though?
Man, we're talking about late 90s.
Oh, okay.
Late 90s. I was about 16 years old at the time. And it was just a job that you can do that you really didn't need work papers. I used to bag groceries and Associated. And I used to put videotapes back at Fox Video in Parkchester, rewind them, put them back, like little jobs. But this was like, I was in the city, like, if you're from the Bronx, the city, that means Manhattan, like, it's different vibe. And so I asked the guy, and I was like, yo, how do you, where do you get these flyers? And the guy was like, look, here's a number. So he gave me a number. I called up, and I was like, they were always looking for fly guys. The more fly guys you have in the city, the more, that's how you get out. Social media wasn't a thing. A lot of people really at this time still didn't even have cell phones. So it was kind of like hand in hand. And I learned a lot about guerrilla marketing at that time. They were putting up posters and putting up flyers and
Street teams.
Yeah, that was like the birth of street teams. So unknowingly, I was part of that. So one of my first real jobs was with Peter Gation of Limelight. So you guys have I think they made a movie Party Monsters and all this stuff about him.
I've heard of Party Monsters.
Yeah. So he basically was the man behind Limelight, Tunnel.
The Tunnel.
Yeah, that was
wild times.
Well, yeah, it was. So I started handing out flyers. So one of the perks of being a flyer guy, they would give you this card, no lie. And you can't even do this stuff now. It was a little card that said you were staff. Now, I remember I was too young. At that time, it was 18 a party, right? And you could use the staff card, and it would let you into the club. So the first time I went into the Tunnel was with this card. And it was cool. Then I didn't have to wait online.
Yeah.
It didn't really matter how old you were because you were staff.
Word.
Because you were either coming in to get your check, or of course, obviously, you grab your little envelope and be like,
I'm gonna stay a while.
Yeah, so we would do that for a while. And but that was really how I got into like starting the club industry. And then I realized you could work in multiple clubs. So I worked for like Sound Factory, and I worked for like Cheetah, and, you know, just
Cheetah.
anybody that could, anybody that would work. And then so besides handing flyers, I realized if you own the guest list, like if you were the guy that got paid,
Yeah.
you would get a bigger percentage. And I was like, wait, I want to have my own guest list. And so that's how at the first started. I was in a club and I was telling somebody, you know, I had a nickname when I was a kid, Blue.
Yeah.
My best friend's mother couldn't speak English, and she was taking English as a second language. And she just automatically assumed that Bruce, which you can't pronounce in Spanish, was Bru. And she said, Blue Azulito.
Okay.
So it's a nickname I had as a kid. And so I was like, they were like, well, what you want your guest list to be? And I was like, Blue's guest list. And that was it. It stuck. It was something easy. And at one point in time, I think I used to have 12 guest lists running every weekend. When I would literally go to every single club to pick up money.
Wow.
Every single club. And I would have my friends hand out flyers and I would hit them off. Just I used to get my friends to do it for free just to get in the club.
Yeah.
And I would keep the money.
So let's talk about that, right? So like, it's so interesting because you talk about hustling, you talk about like the background, right? And being able to essentially think about like the way you grew up and use those skills. Kevin and I always talk about transferable skills,
100%.
right? To say we're gonna take that hustle and put it into the club scene, and now all these guest lists, those are my hustles.
That was it.
You know what I'm saying? I'm getting paid.
That's really how it was. And you know, I was a football player at the time, so you know, I was popular. Or you know, I would go to parties and I'd be like, "Yo, I can get you in the club." I just bring, and you know, and I even at the time, I would do Palladium in New Rochelle, Club Deep, Club Hollywood, Extremes, and then I started like, "Yo, we got." Like, let's do that Manhattan type thing, but let's bring it uptown.
And that's what I was gonna ask you. I wanted to ask you, what was the Bronx club scene like, right? So I'm a little bit younger. So I'm 86. So like the Tunnel, I've only heard stories from like some of my older people and stuff like that, but it was before my time.
Tunnel was amazing because it was a movement. It was the only place that I think I'd ever seen all different types of lifestyles in one building. First off, it was huge. If you never went, the Tunnel had like 8 different rooms with 8 different types of music and different types of, you know, they had, you know, gay side and downstairs was hardcore hip hop in the same building. So you got drag queens on one side of the club and you got thugs downstairs and you got a main dance floor and you got drum beats upstairs, Euro, and like, it was crazy. So just the lifestyle was just amazing, but everybody, it was like a pilgrimage to the Tunnel at the time because at that time I think the house DJ was like Flex.
That's why they have those Tunnel mixtapes.
The
Tunnel mixtapes.
It was I mean, it was crazy. Like, I can't tell you how many people we've seen perform live because I remember we saw X there, we saw the Locks, we saw Craig Mack, I mean Busta Rhymes, Lords of the Underground. Like, these are people who are like legendary now, but they were there, and it was a sweatbox. It was like it was the one room that nobody wanted to hang out in the Tunnel. That was the hip hop room because it was downstairs. It was hot. It was a sweatbox,
and they was probably just walking around, no security. Probably everybody was just in there.
It was, but things like that. So when that started happening, there was a club in the Bronx called Extremes, Roombas.
Yo, I used to go to team parties at Roombas.
Roombas with the staircase downstairs.
And it's crazy because you just keep going down. I'm like, if God forbid there was a fire or anything, so it's over.
It's funny how you think about that now as an adult, as a kid, you know. But the clubs uptown was all right. You know, you had like Riddlers over by, you know, there was always like a vibe, but it was different now. And then New Rochelle was a little bit closer than like going over there down the city. And that's when we started having like some of the bigger clubs. Like, I think Deep Hollywood and Palladium were like huge. You know, they were like bigger than any club in the Bronx. So, and then you started seeing, you know, people, girls or guys from a different neighborhood, or, you know, like, it was different. You wouldn't see all the same people from the hood. So it was different, man. But that's really how I started the promoter thing. It was really just kind of cutting my teeth and I always like to talk to people and I always like to engage. So it was easy for me to do what I like to do and get paid for it. And then have this access, you know, like, remember them little cards? I used to have staff cards for like 5 different clubs. And I'd be like, you know, and I was underage at the time too. So it just all came together, man. And you know, I was still in like high school. It was just, That's
That's
what it
a
was.
beautiful thing. I can resonate with some of the party promotion stuff because that was a hustle that I had in college.
Yeah,
I wasn't great at it because I was more into the partying
yeah.
over the
No,
promoting.
I used to party, bro. But it was like my Monday through Friday and just ready for Friday, Saturday night and partying and all over again. But that's really, I mean, how I got started. And I just started learning the business of it and realizing that, okay, so it was like a hierarchy. So you had your fly guys were on the bottom and the posters and whatever, and then you had your sub promoters, and then there was the real promoters, and then there was the producers. And I was like, wait a second. If that guy's making enough money to pay the bottom guy $4 a head, $5 a head, or $3, whatever the breakdown was, what is the next level making? What is the next level making?
Facts. And that's where I need to be.
And that's exactly. And I
And
was
how do I get there?
and how to learning how to make a contract with a club and they get door receipts, a percentage of door receipts, and then bar percentages, and that's when things got funny. So I joined the military when I was 17. Just kind of get out. I got hurt. Long story short, my football, I had some scholarships pulled, and then I ended up just leaving to the military. So I kind of got
What branch of the military did you join?
Yeah, I was in the Army, but I think during there I learned how to be organized, how to be, take all those skills I had, those promotion stuff and skills, and just learn it. I was a military police, so it was very organized. And at 17 years old, it really gives you structure.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that was missing. Getting your paperwork ready, getting your, learning about taxes, stuff like that. I think that gave me a knowledge, but I just kind of, when I came back from the military, I ended up going to college. And I think that's where a lot of my older friends that were promoting back time became the event producer or the head promoter.
Yeah.
So I just jumped back in with them, and it was awesome running. I mean, me and like 4 of my boys, we ended up renting a house in Ossining.
Oh, yeah.
And we would drive to Beacon, Newburgh.
Okay,
Poughkeepsie, and we
yeah.
used to throw parties.
It's like an hour ride,
We
right?
used to drive because we were like, wait, everybody's over here fighting over the same clubs.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my boys was like, yo, there's a club that holds like 500 people, but it's in Poughkeepsie. And I was like, what is Poughkeepsie?
And how can we get there?
And it was crazy because they so wanted that urban lifestyle. They so wanted to mimic what was happening downstate. And you basically had a group of like 4 or 5 guys that were from the Bronx that were like, my other boys from Harlem, but we were like, yo, let's go get this money. Like,
Fact.
and I remember one time we brought Batman Scoop at the time. He was on Hot 97.
Batman Scoop.
Yeah, no, he was working, and through my relationships, we were friends with his manager at the time, MK, and we were like, yo, can we pay him to DJ a club? But it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours from the city.
Yeah.
And he thought we were joking, and I was dead serious. I think we paid him, no lie, I think it's like $800 at the time. But I mean, you hustled, so we put together money, and he came, and I remember we sold out. Like it was they had never seen anything like that. Before. And that's when we really became event producers. And so then we brought up like Jazzy Joyce, we brought up, Flex at one point in time. And, at that time, I think we booked Black Rob. And then we started like, but we started taking, so somebody like in the Bronx, you'd be like, oh, this person in the Bronx, like, whatever, like a Kid Capri or like, whatever. You'd be like, I've seen them 500 times. But we were taking them to this place that they appreciated, and they didn't get that. And I think that was us learning about supply and demand. Yeah. So it's like a lot of these business lessons we learned, we kind of just tripped up on it. So then that's kind of like my progression when I became an event producer and concert promoter.
So this is an important one. What was your crew name?
A what?
What was the crew name?
The crew name. So it's funny. I used to tell you the whole Blue thing. So I started a company. My first entertainment was called Blue Entertainment, and we were doing mixtapes and everything. I think I found a mixtape recently that was, I don't know if you guys are familiar with DJ Rob Lowe. Yeah, he did. So there's a Rob Lowe mixtape where we get shout out as Blue Entertainment. We were doing all right. So it's funny, I still have that. It's on CD somewhere. But we started realizing that building these relationships, especially with DJs, and like building that crowd and their following, using that street marketing and just kind of learning how to market and build brands. So it was, my boy had Black and White Entertainment, it was Blue Entertainment, and that's how we started. Then it kind of elevated a little bit once I got into like concert and event production to New York City. And that's where
New York City. I like
Yo,
that.
that's dope, man. So thinking about all of that, right? Like all of these endeavors, how'd you get these other names, right? The urban mixologist, right? And
I'm gonna tell
and
you, man. There's no plan, man. So very early on, I've always been behind the ball. I was a bouncer for a while when I first came out of the military, and I got during college, I got hit in the face with coronavirus. I lost my
oh
right eye.
wow.
And I was out of work. I couldn't work. I had an eye patch, and I was working at a bar called Liquid Lounge in Rockland, New York. And the owner was my friend, and so they did like I think it was like a Thursday night, it was college night. They made a theme night for me. I was a guest bartender. I'll never forget it. And it was kind of for me to make money because I couldn't work. I couldn't, I had to wear eye patch for like 6 months. And they made a joke of it, and they came in, it was pirate night, so everybody was wearing eye patches.
Oh,
But they showed love, man, and they were tipping me at the bar, and I kind of liked that whole idea of being behind the bar because I was like, it's kind of like the hand in hand the way I was handing flyers, but now I'm handing you drinks, making you laugh, and then I'm getting paid for it. So I was like, wait a second, something here. So that's kind of what sparked my interest in bartending, and I just progressed in bartending, and I ended up working for a lot.
Did you teach yourself, or did you?
Yeah, no, I did.
That's a
I was
good
really
question.
fortunate. I ended up working at an old Irish pub. This is one place, and I remember I showed up with a shirt and tie and everything, and I was ready. I was like, yo, I know how to make drinks and stuff like that. And the guy was like, yo, I need 20 cases of Bud. I need you to change this keg. And I was like, all right, cool. And so I went up and down, and I'm like, filling the refrigerator. And he's like, yeah, bring them down and bring it up. And I was like, all right, I'm ready to.
yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I need you to go get some glasses from downstairs. And I was like, yo, I'm a bartender. Like, you got me cutting lemons.
Yeah.
Like, my whole shift, I'm cutting lemons. And it's so funny because I didn't realize it at that time. I was learning the foundations of bartending because a lot of people don't realize you need to know how to turn a keg. You need to learn how to cut garnish. You need to learn how to pour beer. So I learned on the job, man. And I gotta say, I've always, if I didn't know something, if I was interested, I would take my lumps because I knew I had to learn. And I think that really resonated in my life, that if you don't know something, learn it, but don't be as arrogant to know and go in and say like you know it. Especially coming in, like learn from people. And I think that's been a real big asset in my life, as I've had really great mentors in life and really good trainers. And I think we take that for granted, especially in our community, that people feel like you have to pay money for education, where most of the time you just got to listen.
Yeah. Oh man, that's such a jewel right there. That listening, that's such a game changer. Thank you.
Listening and understanding that you don't know everything.
Exactly. 100%.
You don't know everything.
I think once you understand that, it becomes
Thank you.
A valuable lesson that you got to learn. You got to listen sometimes. And somebody has been down your road at some point in time. Age is something that you can't make. You can't fabricate age and time. You can't.
And experience.
100%. So basically that ended up getting me through there, and promotion and through all that stuff. I started working at a record company called Fever Records. And that's really where I learned more about concert production, producing. I was a road manager. Before I was a dancer, I had a background. I was an MP. So it's kind of like all these skills I had that kind of went there. And so I used my bartending skills, and they made me a GM of a club that he owned called Club Salud. And I was a GM and head bartender. So that happened. I did that, and then I ended up opening my first club in Middletown, New York, taking that same idea of let's go up north where they need these things. I did that. Didn't work out well. It was a bad business investment for me at the time. I lost a lot of money, and I kind of got knocked down. I lost my life savings and everything on that.
Wow.
But I started working again behind the bar. So I humbled myself and went back down. And as luck would have it, I was working at a bar in Yonkers called Insecurity. It's really famous, down by the water, but it was famous for wrong reasons. It was violent.
Okay.
Like they were owned by two boxers, and it was called Undisputed, and there was nothing but fights in this bar all the time.
Yeah.
So it was like a known thing. I used to box in the gym with them, and they were like, I know you know the bar thing, and literally all of our employees came from the gym.
Okay.
So it was like a known fact. Like, you don't start a fight.
Yeah, it's over.
Undisputed.
Yeah.
People would try. So, and that's what they were known for. So much known for that they ended up getting featured on Bar Rescue.
Okay.
because of violence. So I had left by that time, but they called me back to be the manager again on film on the show. And I was like, look, I don't really want to do that, guys. But they got me to do it, and probably one of the best decisions I ever did.
What year was this?
This was in 2004, 5, maybe. Am I making that up? No, it had to be a little bit after that, probably like 7. I think it was around 7.
Okay.
So we filmed. I was on Bar Rescue, and I met a guy named Russell Davis. And Russell Davis at the time was named the world's best bartender. You know, they brought him in,
Yeah.
and he pulls me aside. And he's like, "You don't work here."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Why?" He's like, "You got a lot more experience
Than
than
the people
here." And he's like, "You know, what's the deal?" And he kind of like took me under his wing, and through him, I got to my first bartending competitions. You know, I was like, "Come on, I'm from the Bronx. We don't do that." And he was like, "You're good. Just do it." And when I did that, he got me into my first Bacardi competition, my first Hennessy competition. And he's some dude from Texas, random dude from Texas. And that's really where I cut my teeth on the industry itself, like not just being behind the bar, the liquor industry itself. And so I entered the Bacardi competition, and I was rated my first Bacardi competition. I was rated number 3 in the world. I was going against people from Australia, from India, and I didn't realize it, that my taste, my palate is so diverse from my upbringing. Tasted Spanish food, Dominican food, African food, you know, soul food, all of that. So when I was creating cocktails, I had a very different point of view than somebody that went to French culinary school. And you know, he was like, use that, and it was valid. And you know, they wrote an article at the time, and you know, they whatever. He was from Australia, really cool guy. And they ended up naming me, the writer said, an urban mixologist, because when I presented myself, when I first went up to present my drinks and my cocktails to the competition, the first thing out of my mouth, I don't know if it's because I was nervous, they were like, you know, hey, you know, introduce yourself. And I was like, South Bronx. And I don't know why. They were like, where you were from? Because I'm still thinking about the guy. The guy had this great thing, like he's from Australia. Like, and I was like, Blue Rivera, South Bronx. And it was just, everybody was just silent. And I was like, and it was a really awkward thing. But taking that, I guess the writer just wrote, I was an urban mixologist, because that's all they knew of South Bronx, urban. And I remember I was livid. You know, it was great that I was in this drink industry magazine and great PR, but I was like, but they didn't say the other guy was a suburban mixologist, or the other guy was a, you know, an elitist, or, you know, whatever you want to call it. Like, I ended up getting this title and this moniker, and I was upset about it. And I had like an agent at the time, and she calls me. She's like, "Oh, did you see? You know, you were in drink and all these interesting." And I was like, "Yeah, it sucks." And she was like, "No." She's like, "How many other urban mixologists do you know?" And I was just kind of like, "Nobody." She was like, "Why don't you make it your own?" And I think that's when I learned another side of the business about taking what you're given and turning it into positive.
That branding piece,
yeah. I think that's when it became something. And so I wasn't going to let or allow something that was used to almost slight me or belittle me become something negative. You know, in every city, in every place in the world, and I've traveled all over, there's an urban area, a hood, you know, whatever you want to call it. So if I'm going to embrace that, then I'm going to embrace that on a global scale. And that's what I did, you know, when I started writing after that for, you know, for a magazine, travel magazines and beverage magazines. I always wanted to go where the culture was. And guess where most of the culture was? Anytime you went to another country,
in the hood,
in the urban area. So I was like, so it was like me going to the favelas, like in South America, and graffiti and art, and that's where the good food was coming from. You know, even I've been to China, and you know, was blessed to meet Bourdain, and like dude, like it's, you know,
R.I.P. Anthony Bourdain.
Yo, man, come on, dog.
He's at the.
Oh wow,
That's that broke my heart, man. He gave me some of the best advice I ever had in my life. You know, met him.
If you couldn't see, for the people listening, he has an Anthony Bourdain tattoo.
Yeah, I do, man.
Flex on him too.
My man Bourdain rocking with me. But no, I met him in China, man, and I remember just that whole experience was scary for me, man. Like, you know, just being outside, you know, Spanish couldn't save me, or, you know, what I knew couldn't save me. Was an entirely different culture. And when I met him, one of the most poignant things he had ever said was, he asked me, what are you doing out here? You're from, New York.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm just trying to write. I wasn't trying to be, quote unquote, you from the Bronx. You don't want me to dick rider. Like
Yeah,
I'm just trying to
yeah,
I love
yeah.
this stuff, but I'm not gonna like,
Yeah.
And he was super cool about it. And I was like, I'm just, writing some articles. I'm just some kid from the South Bronx. And he was
Yeah.
like, hold up. He's like, I'm just a junkie from Fair Lawn, New Jersey.
Mm.
And that hit me. And he said, you got a story, you got a distinct story to tell. And he's like, and they're gonna pay you for it. And when he said that, it hit me. He's like, look, when a man, this is Andy Bourdain, almost at the prime of his career, addressing to himself as a junkie from Fair Lawn, New Jersey. Like, who would have thought that, book sales and corporate sponsorships, and he basically was doing whatever he wanted at the time.
Yeah.
And and I got what he was trying to say. He was saying, if I just consider myself that, I would still be a junkie from Fair Lawn.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the label that you put to yourself. So
Yeah.
and how you
Damn, that's
brand
deep.
yourself. And so I mean, I'm telling you that resonated with me forever after that. And probably one of my biggest articles, it was a 4-page feature in a thing in a magazine, 4 full pages and write up on shaking up Shanghai. And it was about the emerging cocktail culture in Shanghai. And I thought it was, I just kept writing and I was like, this is, and I think it's the most honest piece I ever wrote, and they loved it
Mm.
and they bought it, and then that was it. So I started building my resume as an industry professional, and I was featured in some magazines. And then I got a phone call one day, and I thought it was a joke. It was a tequila company, and they asked me if I would be the Northeast Regional Brand Ambassador, and I was like, yeah, whatever, dog.
Yeah.
Sure.
I owned a small bar on the Lower East Side called Boss Tweeds, and we had just sold, thanks to gentrification. They sold the building, and I was kind of bummed out, man. And this came out of nowhere, and I went for it, and I ended up getting the job. And so, for a while in my life, I traveled most of the U.S. and being an ambassador, being a face of a company, which was kind of crazy. You go
Yeah.
back to that. I'm from the South Bronx. Like this shouldn't.
Yeah.
We maintain this imposter syndrome. It took
Yeah.
me a while to get over. Like, I'm
Yeah.
having lunch at the Four Seasons and like doing all these things, and like that's not for us.
Yeah.
But it is.
Huh?
And I think we need to wake up with that. So coming up was crazy, man. But I just utilized the talents that I had and took the opportunities that were given to me. I didn't forsake those. It's crazy, right?
That's an amazing journey that
Yeah.
you had. So as we were talking outside, one of the things that you told me, your pops is a pastor.
Yeah. My
So-
dad's a rev. Yep.
Yeah, that's a rep. So I'm just curious about this.
Yeah.
What was your dad's kind of feeling about you working in the club industry and
man.
liquor?
Yeah.
Like,
He wasn't a
I
fan.
can imagine he probably wasn't happy with you
Nah,
in the
from the
secular
beginning.
world.
Yeah, no, from the beginning, I remember my dad used to see promotion. He saw I was making a little bit of money and stuff like that. Now, mind you, my dad's from Prospect Avenue.
Yeah.
My
The
dad,
BX
my
word.
dad at the time, he was the president of the Roman Kings Street Gang. In the late 70s, it was all about Savage Skulls, the Roman
Yep.
King,
Yep.
Black Aces, So he grew up in that. So my dad was a tough guy for most of his life. My dad was in the military. And, he just was like, okay, so this is great, but what's your real job going to be? What are you
Yeah.
going to do? And he, but I got into that and he saw kind of the progression of what was going on in life. And he saw that I was making a living out of it and I was creating a difference and doing stuff like that. And I remember one day he said he was driving on the BQE or something like that. And he saw a sign and American Express had just came out with the American Express Blue card.
Yep.
Ah.
So my dad called me. He said, yo, you need to sue American Express.
Yeah.
And I said, what? And he said, they took your name, man. And it almost gave me like validity because he was like, that's your company's name, man. You need to go after these
Your
stuff.
brand. Yeah, man.
And so, it showed me that it was valuable to him and that he realized that it was a real tangible thing.
Dad had bought in.
Yeah. So, and my dad is full supportive. My dad jokes around and says his name's Purple and he's Purple Enterprises. I'm a subsidiary of his company, but just his come up alone, being from Prospect, being, from the bottom. And, my dad's an adjunct at Cornell University. My dad
Fire.
was a director of the Department of Health. He goes by Reverend Dr. Bruce Rivera, to get a doctorate and then still live in the South Bronx. Like, he never left. So he still lives right there on Prospect.
Yo.
So
That's super dope. Couple things I wanna just reemphasize, right? Like, you're dropping so many gems and so much knowledge here. And the storytelling is huge, right? It's something that I was always told too. It's like, yo, you got a story to tell, you got a story to tell. And I've shared this on other episodes. And it's essentially, now I've launched my own consulting business, right?
Amazing.
Based off the storytelling.
Amazing.
And I figured out how to utilize that to drive my work and my passion. And so I think there's something huge in that like, despite whatever you're going through, you do have a story to tell, and people will pay to hear it. And whether it's you actually talking or you developing a brand, someone wants to be a part of that. So I think that's big, and I wanted to highlight that. The other thing,
I think we take that for granted. And just to add to that, we take for granted stuff that comes naturally to us. We laugh, but you got a good jump shot. Guess what? Somebody gets paid to shoot basketball all day. Why?
Facts.
Because a lot of people can't do that.
Yeah,
you can speak. There's people that lock up. And I think a lot of times we belittle our talents, especially in our communities. Stop singing, stop dancing. You're making all that ruckus. But guess what? They're paying somebody to do exactly what you do for free.
And they're probably not as good as you are.
Exactly.
No, exactly.
Nor do they have that hustle, right? That you're talking about, right? So you can carry that into all industries. With that, right, I just want to transition really quickly into talking about hustle and talk about just like all the amazing things you have done to build your career. We're in the middle of the action right now at this pantry, right? How'd you get involved with this work? And the other thing I want to mention that we haven't spoken about, right, is you talked about gentrification and land being brought by real estate companies, right? And so I know you've been involved with some of the work of trying to fight back against that, against gentrification. So talk to us a little bit about like the owning of land and community gardens and like how you're trying to flip that for the community.
Just real quick, how this even started was, and I think that's, if you're going to take anything from whatever I say today, I was let go from that really awesome job. That brand ambassador job was the best job I've had out of my life. And I got let go. They dissolved the company. I didn't do anything wrong. I was actually up for a promotion. I was going to be a national brand ambassador.
Wow.
And I got a phone call that just, with COVID and everything, you can't fly, you can't work. Like, restaurants are closed and everything. So I was home for like a month, and I was going crazy. I'm a workaholic, man. And so I started hearing about people that were hungry, people that I knew, family members, friends of family members. And so I was owning a coffee shop at that time, and I used the coffee shop as kind of a hub to kind of pack food and kind of drop them off and deliver. And I would call organizations to try to get donations, like, hey, we're backing up food for people and leaving them at their door, and literally they would be like, what organization are you with? And I'd be like, Concerned Bronx people, and they were like, oh no, work with another organization.
Wow.
And so that happened, and I remember like 3:00 in the morning, my last position, I did very well, and I was sitting on it, and I just invested. I took my money and invested in this idea, and I built, an organization out of it, and got an EIN and filed the paperwork. And for the first 2 months, I funded, probably over $15,000 of my own money just to feed people.
Wow.
I didn't know it was gonna last this long. I was like, it's gonna carry us to the end of it, But then it became something else, and people started volunteering, and people started getting involved, and we started working in garden spaces, and then that became, learning to teach people how to, make food and use these abandoned community spaces was, I kind of was like, this is it. This is what we need to do. They're taking all the space and this land from us, these safe spaces for children, these places where we can actually grow sustainable food. Sustainability became my goal. So through a lot of relationships and through doing that work, man, y'all gotta pick up a book, look at us, follow the guides, man. And there was some parkland that had been abandoned on 163rd and Melrose, and it was an abandoned community garden. And we had reached out to Parks Department, the Green Thumb, and they weren't gonna reopen it till like 2023. And I was like, that sucks. this place could be feeding people.
Wow. And what year is this? That
This is last year. Bro.
last year.
This
Okay.
was
Yeah.
in-
Recent.
Yeah, man. We just made a year coming up next week.
Wow,
Our
man.
garden.
Congrats.
I started this
Yeah.
organization about a year ago. And so actually what we did was I ended up cutting the locks on the garden and went in illegally.
What's the statute of limitation on these things?
I'm gonna be honest with you. Even though we now have the contract in full standing and licensing, we originally didn't start that, but we needed to get their attention. And that's how we got their attention. I showed it with 30 volunteers and we cleaned up the garden.
Wow.
And they came in, the police came in, and I kind of was like,
Yeah.
arrest me, dog.
Yeah. Facts.
Or you're gonna have to get me a meeting with these people.
Yeah.
And we got the meeting.
Yeah. Talk about that advocacy.
I wouldn't say go that route. I got very lucky, but there was a lot of planning that went before that. There was a lot of paperwork that had been done so that when the meeting did come, we were ready for them. So it was a team effort, even though I was going
and they saw you weren't going to stop.
Yeah. And that was the other thing. We weren't going to stop.
Yeah.
I kind of took a stand there. That was my platform. That was my stand. I was willing to get arrested for it. I was willing to put it all on the line for that.
Yeah.
That's scary, bro. But if you believe enough in something, you should be able to do that. You can't tell me you believe in something if you're not willing to take your lumps on it. So so through them, we acquired some more abandoned spaces and revitalized them. We actually have a grand opening in one of our spaces, which is dedicated to art and giving back to community and youth. Koki Liberation is mostly food production and programming space for learning for individuals. Then we have another one on Jennings, which we work with the Department of Education for programming and enrichment. So we're using these spaces, and they're all used as distribution for food on a weekly basis. Our pantry is killing. We're just moving, man. It's bigger than what I could even imagine. What we've done. We feed about 1,700 people every week in the South Bronx.
And can you say that again, please?
We feed about 1,700 families every week in the South Bronx.
That's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Just coming here today, seeing the line around the corner. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It's great that we can have that kind of outreach, but the fact that we have that much need.
Yeah, it's real. That's real. And but one of the things that you said earlier when we first came that was so dope to hear, right? It's like you were trying to figure out how do we make this type of opportunity, right? The food pantry, something that's more welcoming and that people don't feel ashamed to stand online. And so you got the music playing, right? And it just feels like that Block Party environment that you mentioned, right? And making sure that we were intentional about creating that space.
Well, I think a lot of that is the details. We have to realize that the devil's in the details. A pantry will always be a pantry. The need will always be there. But we really try to base ourselves as community organizers and builders. And how do you do that? You give the community outreach, give them opportunity to help themselves. So a lot of our volunteers come from the communities that we service. Playing music, not only feed the body, but feed the soul, man. Music has been part of our culture forever, whether you're Latino, whether you're African American, wherever you're from, there's been a beat or some drum to your life. So playing music was just it was a no-brainer, making people feel comfortable, giving, we give away candy to kids online. I tell people I was a poor kid from the Bronx, man, and I stood on lines and it sucked. If your friends saw you online and, they would ridicule you or, you on there, but everybody's on there. But, you always kind of felt less than. I always say that's where the seeds of low self-esteem start. And unknowingly, but I think here we uplift them, we talk with them, we ask them how school going, we help pets, and it's just kind of embracing the community and knowing that we're a resource here to really uplift and not just kind of take from them. So that's kind of where we're at on that.
But one of the things that I think is really interesting about your trajectory and your journey, just kind of this dichotomy, right? So when you were like a brand ambassador, and when you were, I can imagine that was probably a pretty glamorous job. You're getting flown around the country, and now to do the work that you're doing, right, with such humility and stuff like that. Was there a mindset shift? Like, how were you able to kind of go from that to this? Because this is
Yeah, no, I think I had to ask myself what was important to me.
Mm.
I really had to be realistic and sit down and say, I could just sit idly by and watch, so many. I mean, I can't even tell you so many things that just broke my heart. The
Mm.
way that people were being treated, the way that second class citizen is a real thing, man. Knowing that a lot of these organizations and a lot of these, these health structures are not meant for us.
Mm.
Underserviced health. When they're talking about running your nearest city MD, ain't no city MD in the South Bronx, bro.
Yeah.
Ain't no, it's sad, but the reality is of testing. We've reached out, we've gotten COVID testing, we've reached out to try to get elders, vaccines, just feeding them, just on a basic level of health services, and I really had to sit with myself and say, I want to use these skill sets that people were paying me for. How do I use that to use as a catalyst to really move forward and help my community,
Yeah.
and not worry about the check. I was out of work for almost 11 months straight,
Mm.
living, eating off the same pantries that I was, helping. So, I think that was how we came full circle. We came full circle, and what we're doing now, we're continuing to grow. It's not only about the pandemic.
So one of the interesting things that you've been able to do is you've been able to purchase land in the Bronx. And I think that that's really powerful. I think that's one way to obviously combat gentrification.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about that. If one wanted to purchase land, how do you even
Well,
go about doing it?
Well, I think it's not traditional land purchasing. There's a lot of different programs and a lot of ways that you can facilitate ownership or custodianship of the land in the Bronx. But I think more of our people need to do it.
Yeah.
There are land trusts. Bronx Land Trust is a really great thing where they actually purchase it, but they do need custodians of the land, and you can partner with them. Green Thumb has the Community Green Space Initiative. These are things that they own this land, but they can't facilitate the proper management of this land or the maintenance of this land. So they're
Mhm.
looking for people. But what ends up happening is they end up going into the hands of other corporations, end up misusing, or end up basically driving it down to be sold at a lower cost.
Which is boom, real
Which
estate
is
company come in.
exactly.
Yeah, got it.
So it's very funny that the people in the communities that this is happening aren't educated on the fact that there are so many opportunities to
Wow.
maintain land and or custodianship of land or usability. Community gardens can really take over spaces and maintain and do them without any upfront money at all, because they become custodians and they have contracts with the state or the city or parks department or
How long do those contracts usually?
MTA. Usually it takes about a
you.
year.
Okay.
A year to you have to do some paperwork, some bylaws, and your organizational hours. We were prepped before we got there, and I think we brought a lot of attention to that. So we got kind of fast tracked. We kind of rang the right doorbells, and we had some influential council people and stuff like that. I think teamwork makes the dream work. Together we can is our motto, and I couldn't have done this without the volunteers, without the help. So at this point, we've acquired 3.5 acres of land that is specifically used for community engagement, enrichment, and food sustainability. And I think when you come from a place of community enrichment, it's different. I don't own the land. It's not me. My community does. Our community has a space. We open our doors to children's programs. We open our doors to, yoga and breathing and self-defense for women. And, we do all this stuff. So it's different, man. I'll tell you, it's enrichment on a whole nother level, man. Yeah, but just literally doing things in the community that are valuable, not only just taking from these people because they're in an unfortunate situation or that need something, but give them something, give them education, show them how to be community organizers, because it's great that I can do this, but what's going to happen when I'm gone?
Who's next up?
Yeah.
Who's
So,
next
I
up?
mean, a perfect example, I don't know if you guys have heard of the Anti-Litter Project.
No.
The Anti-Litter Project started out of Mission Helping Hand, and they're basically a group of young individuals that go around and clean up the streets in the Bronx. And they work with sanitation to try to get a lot of these underserviced areas all of the services that they need. because somebody has to be a mouthpiece for that. You know, a lot of these sanitation, they don't know that these areas are dirty because people aren't making noise enough about it. So the Anti-Litter Project has been really instrumental in that, and, you know, just becoming part of who we are. So Mission is really an umbrella, a think tank of community service and community outreach. So, you know, it's been a blessing.
Yeah, that's dope.
And we appreciate that. Just one thing I'm gonna highlight real quick before we wrap. I love this idea of treating everyone with dignity, right? We like, just because folks are locked up, we still need to treat them with self-respect. They're still people. So I love all of that. So I think we're about to wrap because we actually have to head over to the opening
Yes.
of the community garden. Do you want to say anything real quick about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been a really a labor of love to clean up these spaces. You know, it's been a lot of hard work, but it's dedication, and our community sees that they're doing a valuable, visible difference. You know, it's something that's there. But this garden in particular is dedicating art and beautification. And as you'll see, it's a small garden, but it's a beautiful place, man. And I think when we need,
Do you want to drop the address?
yeah,
people listening?
it's 1001 Reverend James A. Polite Way on the Bronx, right off 163rd. And you know, we're going to facilitate art programs and just kind of teach a lot of these children and even the community that there are other opportunities.
I got an organization to plug you in with. You know, DreamYard.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
Dreamyard, Bronx Works.
Yeah, this is my people.
We
so,
are in there, man.
all right,
And I
that's
love the
good.
stuff that they do, but it's
Yeah.
giving them the bandwidth and outdoor spaces that they can
Word,
do it, especially now with the current status, but we don't know inside, outside.
Yep, the COVID
giving
situation.
them where they can
Yeah.
do classes there, where they can facilitate programming. You know, that's our goal now.
Yeah, now that's dope, man. I know we got to wrap. But you know, before we wrap, if you could just let folks know like how to where to follow you, where to
Yeah.
find you, you know, all of that really quickly.
Yeah, you can check us out at missionhelpinghand, no.com. Also, or on Instagram, Mission HHNYC. We're also on Twitter. Just connect with us. We'd love to see you guys come out. We love having volunteers. We've had some organizations come as groups, as group outings or youth events or community events. If you have a community church organization that wants to come out and do something, we'd love to do that. We've had fraternities, sororities, you name it, man.
Fire, yeah.
It's all love, man.
So Blue, thank you for rocking out with us.
Appreciate you guys.
As we close, Jay, if you could throw out our social medias for me one time.
Yes, you can follow Live from the Bronx on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Live from the Bronx. You can follow us on Twitter at Live from the BX. Check out the website, www.livefromthebronx.com, and send us an email. Leave a review. Let us know who you want to see on the show. You can hit us at info@livefromthebronx.com.
I think that's everything. Season 2, we still rocking out. We did it, y'all.